Good evening, students of Conversation 2. This week's lecture is going to be about house and home. We are now on chapter 5 in our textbook, takeaway 3. And so I'm going to talk to you about the concept of home and how it's different from a house. And in particular, we're going to talk about impressions and how people think about the space where they live. Okay. Now I know a lot of you are in Asian business. This is a class. This is a Conversation 2 class, which is English. It's offered by the English department, but many of you are enrolled in the Asia business department. So let's try and take a little bit of. I'm not going to say it's a business perspective, but let's take a perspective that sort of combines sort of an interdisciplinary idea, about how perception influences people's ideas about something. So a house is actually, let's just start out with a basic definition. A house is actually just a building. And we often call an apartment or even a pension, a cottage, a condo. These are all different types of houses, right? So, when I think of house, I actually think of a building because this is where I grew up. I grew up in the countryside for the most part. I lived in the city and small towns as well. But the places I lived in, the places I called home, were detached houses, what we call, specifically in real estate terms, you call it a detached house, which means it's not connected to anything else. There's a space around it, which in Canada, it's usually, you have a little bit of space on the side, and there's a front yard and a backyard, and it can be huge. I mean, you can have a farmhouse where it's surrounded by fields, but even if you're in a suburb, or if you're lucky enough to actually live in a city and have a house in a city, which is an extremely expensive house usually, even if the house is actually falling apart, the property itself, the land, is really valuable. Just your building is by itself and it's not connected to anything else. That's called a detached house. And that's what I think of when I say house. So when I talk about any other building, I say something like, apartment, or I say condo. If it's an apartment in Canada, normally that means you're renting it. And if it's a condo, a condominium, that means that you own it. In Korea, though, people always say apartment, and you could either be renting it or be the owner. And there's different types of arrangements and contracts and lengths of time that you live there. And in Korea, they don't use the word condominium at all. So just so you know, whether you're an international student or you're Korean, if you hear the word condominium, that's what it means. It means that somebody owns that particular unit. And that's what we say in Canada or the United States, usually. Not always, but usually. And that's distinguished from apartment. Whereas in Korea, it's just, an apartment is just a unit in a building, and you can own it. This is my apartment. In Canada, I would call this a condo. But honestly, I've been in Korea too long, so it's not. This is my apartment. I own it. This is my apartment. I mean, the bank owns most of it, honestly. But this is my apartment. It belongs to me. I'm not going to call it a condominium because it just doesn't feel right. And that's because that's not the language we use in Korea. Okay, so house, if you want to, I can call this my house if I want to, but I'd be more likely to call it my home because there's this cute, romantic, I'm not a big fan of the expression. I think it's just a little bit too, draws too much on the emotions for me, but there's multiple expressions about home. And home, so it's not a physical place. Like a home is wherever you are, right? So there's an expression, well, I just got sidetracked a little bit. Home is where the heart is. Okay, so wherever you are, your heart is there, that you love it. It could be, you could be sitting in a tree and you could call that your home if you wanted. You probably wouldn't, but if you did live there, if you lived, in a tiny one-room apartment like I did when I first came to Korea, maybe some of you do, and I understand what it's like. If you live in a one-room apartment, what we would call a studio apartment or a bachelor apartment, where you just have a bathroom and one room with your bed right next to the kitchenette, it's just like a really tight arrangement. If you live in one of those places, that is your home because that's where you live physically. And I mean, I was not really emotionally attached. So I wouldn't have, said, probably I wouldn't have used that expression. But there's also this doormat that people put when you finally get a place. Like I do, like this is my office, and the rest I haven't shown any of you the rest of my house, and I probably won't. But this place is 10 times bigger than where I lived when I first came to Korea, and I love this place, and it's mine. When I first came to Korea, I lived in a studio apartment, and I rented it, and it was tiny, and it was dirty and old and uncomfortable. So I didn't really think home is where the heart is. My heart is here. My heart was still in Canada actually at that point. And maybe some of you, I don't mean to laugh. I shouldn't laugh, but I experienced it for 2 years. So if you've had to deal with it for less than 2 years, then I'm allowed to laugh. And if you've been in that situation longer, then I apologize. But my heart was still in Canada. So you might feel that way too. It's like if you have a nice house and your parents have a big house that's really nice, and you come to another place and you have a hard time and you're lonely and you're tired and it's small and it's dirty, and that's basically what happened to me, then you're not going to say my home is where, my home is still in Canada at that point. Now my home is here because my heart is here. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Another expression that people love back home in Canada is the doormat. You put a doormat. It's just a mat where you take off your shoes. Contrary to what people think, Koreans have often told me that one of the differences between Korean houses and American houses is that Americans don't take their shoes off. I actually have been in very few American houses, but and some people, I have gone in houses where people said, don't worry about taking your shoes off. But in my house, I was in serious physical jeopardy if I tried to walk inside with my shoes. If I walked inside with my shoes and my mother caught me, there was punishment for that. Okay? So I know in Canada we don't have slippers, but that's not true. Rarely did I go into somebody's house. It's true that some people do. But if you have a carpet in your house, you can't walk around in shoes in a carpet. You'd have to clean that thing. You'd have to shampoo the carpet every other day. Anyway, these are aspects about your house that are different from culture to culture, from house to house, from types of homes and houses. Some people have doormats at the front. You put the doormat down, and that's for like cleaning your feet. And if you have a house where shoes are allowed, you kind of brush your shoes off as you go in. So that's a thing Koreans don't usually have. But regardless of whether you bring your shoes inside, sometimes in Canada or the United States, there's a doormat to clean your shoes so your shoes don't track dirt inside, or just to, have something soft, I guess, to clean your feet a little bit more as you walk in, or even on the outside. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the inside of the house. It can be outside. Sometimes it has a little bit of a message on it. Home Sweet Home is one of the most famous things. Sometimes it's a plaque on the door. Sometimes it's written on the doormat. And so that expresses your comfort when you're in your home. And I think that is the definition of home. That's why the home is where the heart is, I guess, although I don't like the expression because it's just a little bit too sappy for me. It is true that wherever you're emotionally attached, for whatever reasons. It could be the environment, it could be, the view. Like once you start to have the connection, sort of an emotional, psychological connection to the place where you live, then it's not just a lodging or a location where you are, it becomes a home. Okay, so how do you turn a place, even if it's this tiny little, off in Korea, the term is office-tel. It was opus-tel, right? Opus-tel. You guys, some of you might live in a dormitory. I shouldn't say you guys, it's a bad habit. You students, you people, I mean girls too when I say guys, just so you know. When you're arranging for somewhere to live, whether you're a Korean student or an international student, Gungdong is probably an option, or you might live in the dormitory. You might live in a tall building that it's called an office-tel. Office-tel. F's don't exist in Hangul, so they say opus-tel. But you know what I mean. And Gungdong, usually it's a shorter building, so they call it a villa. This is all kind of Konglish, not if you went to another country, just so you don't walk around in America saying, I want to find a room in a villa. They're not going to know what you're talking about. If you go to England, they're going to say that's a flat. If you're in the United Kingdom, if it's a short apartment building in America, then it's going to be a low-rise apartment. It means a shorter apartment, or it's just going to be a room, like a student house, possibly. It's actually going to be more like an actual house that's been converted for students. That's called a student house in Canada. So there's 100 different words for different places you can live. You can say house or home, but usually when you go to another country, it's going to be more specific. And honestly, before I came to Korea, now I know what a villa is here. A villa is not like that. A villa is a really basic kind of simple room in a building here. If you went to Italy and you wanted to rent a villa, I think you would be shocked. First of all, you'd be shocked at the price. And second of all, you'd be shocked at the quality, how beautiful it is, and how luxurious of a place you're looking for. Korean villas are not villas. It's a Konglish thing. Just letting you know. And the same thing anywhere else. Like villas are a European expression usually. So a low-rise apartment, or if you wanted a flat in Dublin, or you wanted a flat in London, you'd probably be shocked, first of all, at the price, because it'd be super expensive, and then next you'd be like, this is not that great for what I'm paying, right? But here it's somewhere in between. The price is pretty reasonable, but you don't get much, really, certainly not in terms of luxury. A villa is like a pretty basic accommodation here. I lived in one. Some villas are nice here, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people live in a villa, and that means you can have a big villa or you can have a small one. It means a unit in a house that somebody has built, and it's normally, for students, they're very simple, and it's just a single room. But you can have multi-room, you can have really nice rooftop villas and stuff. They are very nice, more like what the Italian sort of idea is like. Okay, so there's our definition of houses and homes. In this chapter, in chapter 5, I'm going to ask you for your assignment this week to talk to me about your home. That's it. You can talk about your home before, or you can talk about your home now, or you can talk about your dream home, okay? Again, I've tried to explain to you, these questions are very open-ended. So I'm just going to say something like, can you please explain to me what you would, about a home? That's it. Explain to me about a home. So that gives you the option. I could say, what is your dream home? Or I could say, what was your home when you grew up? Or where do you live now? There's a variety of questions I could ask that are more specific, but I'm just going to ask you that instead. So if you have an idea of what you would like to live, what situation you would like to be in, and the home you would like to have later, then you can tell me about that. I think that's probably the hardest, though. So I recommend that you talk about your home where you grew up, one of your homes. Maybe you moved a lot. That's fine. Just choose a home where you lived or the home you live in now and describe it and tell me what makes it your home. And like you can say to me, you can talk about your current accommodation. Like I live in Gungdong and but my real, I'm attached and my feeling is still in Daegu or Busan or Seoul or Gwangju, wherever you're from, doesn't matter. You can say that it's not, I haven't, settled in Daejeon and my real home is somewhere else, and then talk about Daejeon and what your life is like in your room. I think because of the coronavirus right now, people are making an effort to make their house more comfortable and make it more homely and more and more attractive, because we're stuck in our homes more than we have been. Traditionally, in most cultures, we were in our homes. Human beings, hundreds of years, not thousands of years ago, we were never in our home. Our home was just like home base, and you go hunting and gathering, and you would migrate, and perhaps you were in a nomadic society where your home moved all the time, so you're constantly in motion. And but in modern society, we started to become more sedentary, and we're like fixed in our location, and we started to become used to that. But a lot of people, because of airplanes and cars and public transportation and everything else, some people rarely stayed in their house for an extended period of time. I'm one of those people. I was, until February, I would be outside 10 to 12 hours a day. Really, my house was essentially for eating breakfast and sleeping. Now, I'm outside probably, if I avoid people and I go shopping a little bit, I might be outside 4 or 5 hours at the most, probably less. Like some days I basically don't go outside at all, and I haven't done that since I was a depressed high school student, pretty much. You know what I mean? It's been like 20 years since I decided to stay in my room all day. So that has made people try to change their environment inside to make it more comfortable. I've spent more time in my office, this office, not my school office, because I was there a lot, despite what people think, just not during regular hours, because I have a lot of classes. But this office is really my backup area for doing anything. I come here to read when I have spare time, which I didn't have any spare time until now. But now I'm it's not filming, I'm recording myself and spending at least 4 or 5 hours in this room daily, just to keep up with my job as a professor. So, this office is cleaner. I know you probably think it's not clean just by looking at this, and I gotta remove all these dinosaur stickers. I forgot to do that. That's gonna be gone, and I'm going to get a whiteboard on Tuesday. Good news there. But honestly, this is cleaner, and I could do a 360 here, and you would see this office has never been cleaner since I first stepped into this room. It's been a disaster, but now it's pretty clean. These are things that have changed, mostly because we're stuck inside a lot. So, the textbook wasn't written for this period, for the coronavirus, but I think in particular, page 54 and 55, they talk about something called Feng Shui. And there's a different word in Korean for Feng Shui. I'm going to forget exactly what it's called, so I'm not going to say it, but I'll put it in the comments to this video, because I have heard it before. I'm going to say it's Pungsu. Please don't blame me. I know there's a few Korean students in this class, don't blame me if I mispronounce it. I'll write it down properly in Hangul in the comments so that you know what I'm talking about. And for international students, you can look it up. But basically, it's the same idea. It's like, it's the energy that you feel by the arrangement and the interior decoration, I guess is the way you would put it. I'm not really into this, as you can see by my shelf. I prefer function over, I don't know what I'm doing. Energy, by feeling, for whatever Feng Shui actually is. It's basically an idea that there's positive energy and negative energy, and there's certain orientations of things towards cardinal directions. So like if things are facing north and colors and everything are arranged, I don't really completely understand it. I don't subscribe to it. I don't believe in it. So I'm not going to promote it. But that's the concept. The thing, you can do whatever you want. Feng Shui is not a lie. Feng Shui is not really something that's not real, because people do come into a room and they get a feeling when they come into a room. I think that's a better way of describing it, though, because Feng Shui is almost like some kind of weird philosophy that is some people believe is like some sort of scientific like calculation you make. So you can actually hire consultants that claim to understand how things should be arranged, and that they can calculate. It's almost like a fortune teller type thing, except a fortune teller, you can pay them $10 and they can tell you, oh, Jeremy, you're going to be, I see your future. This year, you're going to be successful and rich, but someone close to you is going to have a serious problem. And I go, thank you very much. That was $10, and I'm okay with that. So, never see you again, but thank you for the, positive prediction of my year of the rat or whatever, okay? But when it comes to Feng Shui, you can actually, in the United States or in China, or I've heard, I don't know very well about the Korean situation, but there are people, I won't get into it, I don't want to be controversial, but there are people that get consulted for these types of things, and they can literally charge you thousands of dollars. Now, if you have a lot of money and you want to give it to somebody, then go ahead. But I'm just saying, you might want to, if you don't have thousands of dollars that you just want to donate to somebody without necessarily getting a benefit from it, then you might not want to do that. I mean, there are people that do consulting. They do make there are interior decorators. There are people who you pay money and they actually change things and improve the appearance of your house. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just these people that just say, they come in and they look around and they say they sense something, and they just say there's ghosts in this room, or this needs to be, there's negative energy in this direction, so they just move everything around, and you basically pay them $1,000 for that. That's not really something most people want to do. So there's a really good show I used to watch. It was only on briefly, but it's called Penn Teller, and they use a lot of, basically the show is about two magicians, and they're famous for basically showing magic tricks to people and showing how people are deceived. That's how they became famous. They did shows in Vegas and stuff. It's the two guys' names are Penn and Teller. I'm going to link you a couple of their videos. One of them is about bottled water, and basically they're trying to show people how gullible we are to believe and do things and pay huge amounts of money for things that are really not necessarily, there's no validity to them. There's nothing in them, I guess is the way I'm in a literature major. That's what they used to say hundreds of years ago in English literature. They used to say there's nothing in it. That means there's no substance to it, and it doesn't mean anything. And you're asking for something, and you think you're getting a lot, but you're not getting anything. The bottled water Feng Shui episode is really good, and they basically just, they know that they're not getting anything, so they basically just break through the fake, you know. I don't want to call it cheating necessarily, but these people are taking advantage. These people are taking advantage of people, and some of them shouldn't be spending so much money. That they're not celebrities with hundreds of millions of dollars that just can just throw it away. They're people that actually believe this stuff, and they're just trying to demonstrate to you not to think that spending money on things that are advertised is a good idea. So the bottled water thing is pretty funny because they put all these fake labels and fancy names on the bottled water, and they serve it to people, and people pay like, you know, $5 American or more for bottled water just because it's labeled something, and they just pour garden hose water in it. It's not just, it's lower than regular quality water, and they drink it, and they think they pay the money, and they think they're getting something great from it. And that's the parallel with Feng Shui. I will show you also one of their really great initial tricks where they show the whole sequence of how to construct an illusion. These guys are great. And since this stuff, I've shown this stuff to English students many times, but I think business, if you become a professional, if you're gullible and you're in your company and you get sucked in and you spend money for a lot of the company's money or your own money for something, that's a huge disadvantage. So I'm not telling you to be skeptical about everything. I'm just saying, you know, look for value in things and analyze things carefully and inform yourself, right? So let's the assignment for this week is write about a home, right? A future home, your present home, or a home you had in the past, and describe it in detail to me. So I'm looking for not so much analysis in this assignment, mostly just good description. Tell me what the home is like, and tell me why you liked it or disliked it. Like, give me some reasons why this home is the best home. Maybe that you have maybe you lived somewhere when you're young and you have distinct positive memories about it, and you want to talk about that, or that you have negative memories. And I'm at the end of my lecture already, but if I was in class and I was teaching you for 2 hours, I would tell you about certain homes that I had. Some of them I remember because I have so many good memories, happy memories with my family, playing with my dog outside and fresh air, and growing up, playing basketball with my father in the driveway. These things happened in a certain location. And even when I haven't been back for decades, but I'm pretty sure when I go back, even though the trees are bigger or they've died and gone, or the environment and the whole road has changed and different people live there, I'm pretty sure when I see that house, that one-story house, that bungalow house in the countryside on Union Street, 198 Union Street, Meaford, Ontario, when I see that house, that my heart is going to still react, right? And that's the house I would talk about. If somebody asked me, tell me about a home you had, I love this house in Korea, but if I was going to talk about any house in my whole life, that would be the one, you know, on Union Street, on the edge of the town, with the apple orchards at the end of the road, where I got my first job delivering newspapers to the neighbors. Okay? So that's what I want you to do. Keep in mind, though, one of the lessons of this lecture is that you need to be informed and careful and analytical, and you need to understand that there's perspectives on things, like, if I must use Feng Shui as an example, that they can be used for people to take advantage of you. I'm not saying you shouldn't believe in Feng Shui necessarily, because some people come in and they are, I mean, look at, I'm a great example. If I asked somebody to clean me up and make me look more handsome, they would give me a haircut, they would put some makeup on me, probably they would shave me and change my clothes, and you guys would all think I was better looking. I realized that. That's not fake. And the same thing, the aesthetics of a house are the same thing. You can go in and be like, this house is basically a good house, it's in a good location, but it looks crappy. So let's fix it all up and move everything around and change this and change that. That's a real thing. Just don't get sucked in by somebody who's fake when they're trying to sell you something that's not valuable and not an advantage for you. That's an underlying message of this lecture. Okay, so my friends from Asia Business Department, that is all for this week. Conversation 2. Please do your assignment on time by next Monday, as usual. And I look forward to, since the number of cases are lower in Korea for the last week or so, there is an actual real possibility that we will be able to return to the classroom in May. So we'll just, again, things are changing on the ground day by day. So just look for information from me through the website and through the video lecture, and obviously from the administration itself. And we'll adjust as that information comes in. So for now, continue to do your assignments. Most of you are doing a great job. Some people have asked for feedback. That is forthcoming. And obviously, if we're in the classroom, that'll be easier for me to talk to you in person. But in the case that we are delayed again, or that we can't be in the classroom, email will have to do. So that I will contact the individuals that have asked for feedback in particular this week. Thank you for listening. Talk to you again soon.